Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into this groundbreaking edition of The Big Hit. As always, I'm your host, Josh Hill. Today we have a myriad of sports topics to discuss. We'll begin in the NFL, where the Pittsburgh Steelers got their first win of the season, and we might have a bit of a quarterback controversy in Philadelphia. Then we debut a new segment called Fantasy Focus, where we recap the top performers of the week. We recap the Pirates' magical season and look ahead to the playoff matchups that are ongoing. Then another new segment called Rivalry Rampage, where we discuss a simple question: who is better, the Penguins or the Flyers? We then take a look at the IUP Crimson Hawks, recap their game against Slippery Rock, and look forward to their game against the Edinburgh Fighting Scots this week. And then we close it off with the 2-minute drill. It's the Big Hit. It's on your television right now. And welcome into the show. It is the Big Hit right here on IUP-TV. Let's start with some NFL talk. Joining us here for this segment, to my far left, a man that needs no introduction. I'll give him one anyway. It's Freddie Mitchell. And in the middle, it's our Swiss Army knife, Michael Martone. Gentlemen, let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their first win of the year against the New York Jets. And they pretty much shut down Geno Smith, were able to force a few turnovers. Are you impressed with their defense and their ability to shut down Geno Smith?
Not really impressed by the defense on this. I think Geno's a great upcoming quarterback in the league. People are comparing him to last week, throwing no interceptions against the Falcons. That's obviously his top performance as a rookie. The Steelers, their defense should be stopping top quality teams, not low quality teams like the Jets. This shouldn't be such a big to do. What are they going to do in the upcoming weeks? When they have to play quarterbacks such as Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, quarterbacks like that? Will they be able to stop those caliber quarterbacks? I think not.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't overly impressed with the Steelers' defensive performance, but I will give it to them. They finally got a turnover, 2 turnovers actually. Dimitri George actually called it last week on the show. Lawrence Timmons needed to get involved on that defense, and he did. He had 6 tackles and one of those 2 interceptions, so that was good. But they were playing a rookie quarterback in Geno Smith, so I think we were kind of reminded that he is a rookie, and he's going to make mistakes. We knew that before this game even started. We knew that before the season even started. Geno Smith is going to make mistakes, and that's just what happened this game. It was very evident.
Yeah, it's obvious he's a rookie, and the Steelers defense should stop a rookie quarterback.
Absolutely.
They have the talent. They should stop a rookie quarterback. They should get 2 interceptions.
Yeah, and one of the things that was really impressive for the Steelers defense is because of the performance that Geno Smith had last week against the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night. So, did the Steelers' performance provide any indication that they would be able to make a playoff run?
There is no hope for the Steelers to go to the playoffs. Pittsburgh, you had your fun in the playoffs. The Pirates just made it. Celebrate that. I'm looking at the schedule. They have games coming up against the Ravens twice still. They have the Patriots, the Lions. They have Green Bay. All top caliber teams in the NFL. I see no chance of them winning out or just even coming like 10-6, and I don't see any of that happening.
Yeah, looking off that schedule, like you just noted, I can't find an easy victory for them in there anywhere. Yeah. It's going to be a tough schedule, it sounds like, and the rest of the division is actually starting to pull away. Cincinnati leading now at 4-2, Baltimore and Cleveland both at 3-3 right now, and Pittsburgh's just in the back at 1-4. Right. So the division is actually starting to shape up. They're looking good, so I don't think Pittsburgh has a chance either.
0% chance.
Yeah.
0% chance.
It's a weak division. The 1 win, you don't want to schedule the Steelers for the playoffs after 1 win. But let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Can't talk about the Steelers without the Eagles. A 31-20 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nick Foles had a nice game, 4 total touchdowns. Is there a quarterback controversy brewing in Philadelphia with Vic and Foles?
This is a very interesting question. I think there could be something developing. It depends how Chip Kelly plays this and what he does and how he goes on from this injury moving forward. Now, if he comes back and says, Michael Vick is our starter, he was injured, we're putting him right back in the starting lineup, no quarterback controversy, moving along. If he goes, well, maybe we should play Nick Foles for the first, or something, a little weird combination, then I think you start a controversy in the locker room. But I think it's just going to determine how Chip Kelly goes to play out the rest of this injury as Mike Vick gets healthier or stays injured.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is. I feel like there's a quarterback controversy brewing.
It could be brewing.
It's in the works right now.
It's
but
in that beginning state.
If it's not there right now, I think it needs to be there because Nick Foles has came out the last 2 games and he's been playing very well. Actually,
Right.
He came in against the Giants with a 114.9 quarterback rating. Finished with Michael Vick while he was in there only had a 69 quarterback rating,
Right.
and Foles 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions against the Giants. So he played very good then. And then his actual start, a 133.3 quarterback rating, which that's just unbelievable for him. And again, 0 turnovers in that game as well. So anytime you have 0 turnovers, that's what I love to see from quarterbacks. That's what I love to see from all players.
I think a lot of people who follow the Eagles or who are big fans of football agree that Nick Foles might be the better choice for this offense. But also, you think, does Chip Kelly want to slow down a little bit with Foles, or with Mike Vick? He can run someone to have a faster offense and keep the pace moving. So it's kind of just a coaching kind of scheme thing too. Yeah. I think Chip Kelly has to decide.
Yeah, excellent point, guys. I want to build on this a little bit and ask you to play Chip Kelly for a week. If Mike Vick is healthy, would you put him back in the starting lineup, or would you go with Nick Foles?
This week against the Cowboys, the only way I'm starting Mike Vick is if he's 100% and ready to go. If not, Foles has been doing great in the quarterback position. I think he could easily pick the Cowboys defense apart. I would see no problems with starting him this week if Mike Vick is 100%.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I would keep Nick Foles starting unless Vick, like you said, is 100%. If he's not, I would do what they did this week. They kept him on the sideline. He was active, and he was there as like an emergency kind of thing. So I think they should do that same kind of thing unless he is indeed 100%. I think Nick Foles.
Unless he says, Chip, I'm ready to go. Let's play. I'm not putting him on the field.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's move on to Boston. It was a big day for Boston. The New England Patriots played host to the New Orleans Saints and won the game really in stunning fashion. Tom Brady hooking up with a late second touchdown. Who do you blame for the Saints' loss? Do you blame the offense or the defense?
Well, I look at this game, and I know I watched some of the game, looking at it both ways. I feel like the offense definitely should have capitalized. They should have ran the clock out. But give credit to the Patriots defense. They got the stop, got the ball back to their offense, and then once again, give credit to Tom Brady. He was able to drive down the field, score that touchdown, 7-yard drive. I would say not to worry. You can't really say, oh, well, they failed.
The Saints had opportunities to maintain possession of with the ball, but they gave it back to Tom Brady, marched down the field with about a minute 30 seconds left, and we all know what happened then. 17-yard touchdown, Kembrell Tompkins, excuse me. It was magic.
I think it goes to show too that we know the Saints are an aired-out team. They're going to throw the ball 50 times. This goes to show you when you don't have a solid running game at the end of the game, when there's 2 minutes left and you have to run out the clock. Well, now that might be becoming an issue for the Saints. So it might be something they have to look into of building back up.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the running game, Freddie. Stephen Ridley for the New England Patriots came back off of injury, 20 attempts, 96 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So the Patriots were able to establish the run. Then, of course, Tom Brady doing what he does.
Absolutely.
Over the top to Kembrell Tompkins. Fantastic game. That's going to do it for our NFL segment and, of course, the Rob Ryan struggle face. That was one of the best moments of the season. That's going to do it for our NFL segment. Freddie Mitchell and Michael Martone. Coming up, we debut a new segment here on The Big Hit. It's called the Fantasy Focus. Stay tuned.
Here at The Big Hit, we like to be prepared, because sometimes technology doesn't always work, so we do what we can.
Hey Sean, hit him up.
This just in, Tim Tebow just got inducted to the Hall of Fame.
That's not right.
Maybe we need to prepare just a little more.
Welcome back to The Big Hit and the first edition of our new fantasy football segment, Fantasy Focus. I'm Cody Benjamin, and to my left, Eric Kormos. We're going to jump right in and look at the statistical leaders of the NFL from this past week, and then give you our insight on fantasy and how it correlates with those stats. We're going to jump in with the passing stats to start off. And looking at the board here, Joe Flacco led the way with 342 yards and 2 touchdowns. And what do you see from the statistical leaders and how they relate to fantasy football this week?
This is a great example of statistical leaders in the NFL not matching up with fantasy points leaders. As you can see here, Flacco, Dalton, Henne, Palmer, they're borderline starting quarterbacks in 12 and 14 team leagues. The only real predominant fantasy player to see here is Aaron Rodgers. And of this list, I got to be honest with you, Cody, I think he's the only one that can really move forward and give you consistent value in fantasy leagues.
Yeah, just like you said, I think looking at somebody like Chad Henne, he might put up 300 yards, but that's a team in Jacksonville that's obviously, they're not a very reliable team, especially for fantasy points. I think some guys we need to look at for passing this week are Nick Foles, Cam Newton, the guys that are threats. Maybe not as much Nick Foles as Cam Newton running the ball, but obviously, Foles did have a rushing touchdown and also 3 passing touchdowns this past week. Those are some of the guys that I saw this past week for fantasy that were maybe more productive than the actual statistical leaders.
Right. Now we'll take a look at the rushing statistics.
Looking at that, I think Arian Foster. He's obviously a consistent guy who's always going to put up those points. But somebody that I look at that maybe is a little bit deceiving on this board is Brandon Jacobs. He's kind of fresh on that team, even though he has been with the Giants before. And he's not somebody I would rely on every week as a starter at running back for fantasy.
Yeah, I agree with that. Marshawn Lynch, talk about him real quick. He gives you a real balanced attack this past weekend. Hit 155 all-purpose yards, 77 on the ground, 78 through the air. He also threw in 2 rushing touchdowns as well. So when you add that all together, he's got it rolling back-to-back weeks in Seattle. So after a slow start to the season from Marshawn Lynch, he's rebounding and providing that first-round value that most people picked him at this year.
I think somebody else to keep an eye on, maybe Noshawn Moreno. Obviously, with Peyton Manning, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. But Noshawn Moreno had 3 touchdowns this past week, and obviously, every time a guy can get a touchdown, that's big points for fantasy.
Yep.
Moving on to receiving, Justin Blackmon, a clear standout this week. But I look at Vernon Davis as someone to really keep an eye on. 180 yards is good for anyone receiving, but for a tight end especially, sometimes even less than 100 can be good for a tight end. And with his standing out that way with 2 touchdowns as well, that's a big guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, you look at Blackman's performance. This is his second game. Remember, he served a 4-game suspension for violating the NFL substance abuse policy. So this is his second game back, 14 catches, 190 yards. It's a very good performance. Moving forward, Cecil Shorts might be out this week. So you look at Justin Blackmon, he'll probably be able to repeat this performance coming up. Vernon Davis scores from 61 yards and 35 yards out. So shows his big playability that you don't normally get at the tight end position. So it shows you he's very, very valuable on that spot for you on your roster.
I think maybe a sleeper for receiving this week, Marvin Jones of the Bengals. He has 71 yards and a touchdown. With A.J. Green, obviously you don't know, how much he's going to get the ball, but that's someone to keep an eye on moving forward.
All right.
And then, now that we've looked at the statistical leaders, let's look at some guys maybe that we want to add or drop this week in fantasy.
Okay.
Who are some guys that you think maybe would be worthy of adding to your fantasy roster?
Okay, I'll give you a couple of people to choose from. First of all, quarterback. A lot of you have Drew Brees out there, I'm sure. Well, the Saints have a bye this upcoming week, so you're going to need somebody to stream at that quarterback position. Look at Nick Foles in Philadelphia. Look at Dallas right now on defense. They have given up the most points to opposing quarterbacks in fantasy football this season. Start Nick Foles with confidence if you need somebody, a streamer option. Also, I like Keenan Allen of San Diego. Back-to-back weeks. You look at their wide receiver situation. Denario Alexander, Malcolm Floyd, both out for the season because of injuries. He's been thrust into that #1 role. Phillip Rivers has made this guy his favorite target the last 2 weeks. I look for that to continue moving forward.
Yeah, I think one of the guys you mentioned, Keenan Allen, is somebody definitely to look at. With Phillip Rivers, he's had 3 400-yard passing games this year. The Chargers really have been lighting it up on offense, and against Jacksonville this week, he's my start of the week, actually. And then looking at some people who you might not want on your team, who are some guys that you might consider dropping?
Well, I would look at, first of all, the quarterback position. If you have Matt Castle on your team still, I don't know why you would, but if you did, you definitely want to cut bait on him. It took him 32 completions last week for 240 yards, all right? And he had 4 4 attempts in the football game beyond 20 yards from the line of scrimmage. He had 1 completion and 2 interceptions. Cut bait on him right now. And also Donald Brown, running back, Indianapolis Colts. He hasn't had more than 7 carries in a game this season. They bring in Trent Richardson through trade, give up a number 1 pick. He's going to be their guy. So if you have Donald Brown, feel free, drop him. You can do better on the waiver wire.
Somebody also I've been looking at, the Rams tight end Jared Cook. In ESPN leagues, he had 26 points in the first week, but the last 5 weeks he's totaled 14 points. So maybe somebody you want to consider dropping. And also on the injury front, Ahmad Bradshaw and Julio Jones both headed to IR, so obviously they're going to be pretty clear drop candidates.
Yeah.
And then I know I mentioned Keenan Allen as my start of the week. Who's somebody that you would say definitely put him in the starting lineup for this week?
I'm going back to the Philadelphia and Dallas game. I'm going to say Tony Romo. And the reason why, you look at Philadelphia's pass defense, it's horrific. They are the 31st team, next to last in the league, giving up 315 yards per game. You look at Tony Romo's been performing very, very well. They're also giving up 30 points a game in Philadelphia. So I like Tony Romo. Start him with confidence this week. What about you, Cody?
I had, as I said, Keenan Allen, but also Phillip Rivers is an obvious candidate to start every week, but definitely, I don't know why you wouldn't have him in your starting lineup this week, but against the Jaguars, and he's had 400-yard games, you have to keep him in there. That's going to be big points. Looking at somebody who you're going to sit this week, I had Ray Rice against the Steelers defense. We saw Flacco earlier was on the top of the passing board, so you never know with the Ravens how much Ray Rice is going to get the ball, and if the Steelers defense can hold him or limit him, you definitely want to consider sitting him. How about you for sit of the week?
I'm going to go with Cecil Shorts, the wide receiver from Jacksonville. And the reason why I say this is he's probably going to be sitting out due to a shoulder injury suffered last week. It's not definite yet, but word is right now, early in the week, he's going to miss that game. So you got to make plans because you have buys this week. Lots of people are off. Maybe you were counting on Cecil Shorts to be in that starting lineup to fill a hole for you. If he's not there, you've got to be quick and get on the waiver wire and get some of these guys that Cody and I have been talking about tonight.
Well, that about wraps it up for Fantasy Focus this week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Listen, all I'm saying is LeBron James is better than Michael
Oh,
Jordan.
Why did everybody get so quiet?
And welcome back into the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV. It is The Big Hit, and it's time to talk some Major League Baseball with our MLB analyst on the far left, Dan Wallace, and in the middle, rocking the purple shirt, Mr. Sam Owak. And gentlemen, the Pittsburgh Pirates, what a season it is. It was, I should say, as they fell to the Cardinals. Recap the season real quick. Even though the Pirates are out, what did this mean to the city as a whole?
Man, what didn't it mean to this city? I mean, you get playoff baseball in this city for the first time in 20 years. I had the luxury of actually getting to go to one of the games, and I'll tell you what, it beats any atmosphere that I've ever been to. When you think of sporting event, it beats any Steelers game I've ever been to. It beats any Penguins game I've ever been to, and I've been to my fair share of Penguins playoff games. A Pirates playoff baseball game is unlike anything I've ever experienced. You could actually feel that stadium rocking, and if they can get this back to being a consistent thing, man, this city is in for one of the greatest rides of their lives in this upcoming years.
Yeah, for sure. It brought baseball back to the city of Pittsburgh, which is much needed after a long drought. But I'm really excited for the whole thing to happen. But it definitely brings a new perspective to baseball. Pittsburgh, they actually are a baseball team now, a good baseball team, a legit one. And they aren't the bottom feeders of the league anymore. So it means a whole lot to the city now.
Yeah, and Dan, you mentioned the atmosphere at PNC Park, Federal Street before the games, people lining up hours and hours before the gates even open. It's really just one of the coolest things to be a part of.
And even in Game 5, even though they lost the game, they had an atmosphere like they do for Penguins playoff games where they brought the big screen out onto Federal Street. And there's nothing like that when you can see a fan base get together, even when your team is on the road like that, and collectively show your support together. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the energy there had to have been amazing to watch the game at St. Louis or on Federal Street, wherever is being broadcasted at, because those fans, they were in for a long time. It was way overdue, I feel. So I'm just happy that they brought it back to Pittsburgh now.
Yeah, guys, the rally towels were out. The atmosphere was great. This offseason is really going to be one of the biggest in recent memory for the Pittsburgh Pirates. What do you think they need to do? What key positions do they need to address in this upcoming offseason?
Well, it's interesting because for one of the first times in recent history, there aren't very many holes for this team to fill. When you look at the past 20 years, every year coming into the offseason, they have 5, 6 holes that they have to fill. They have a pitching rotation that they have to replenish. This year, it's a little different. They only have a couple places that they need to fill. First off, they need to find a solution in right field, whether that be Jose Tabata, whether he be your everyday right fielder, whether you re-sign Marlon Byrd or bring somebody in from the outside, because you have a guy in Gregory Polanco who's going to be ready soon, but he's not ready yet. You need somebody to fill that void until he is ready. The other position that you really have to look at is first base. They brought in Justin Morneau here at the end of the season for the last month of the season in the playoffs. I'm not sure he's your long-term solution. Garrett Jones will not be back next year. And I'll say this, Gabby Sanchez is not your long-term solution at first base, and there's not really anybody in the minors that is. You have a guy in Alex Dickerson who is getting close to ready, but he's not the solution there either. The one guy that I would love to see them take a run at from the outside is a Cuban kid, 26-year-old Jose Abreu. This kid has a ridiculous power bat. You can compare him to the bat of Pedro Alvarez, just absolute raw power at that first base position, which is what you need. He's a guy that can hopefully come in and give you 30 home runs, 40 home runs a year. But he's also a guy, even though he's never played in the big leagues, that is going to fetch a hefty price. So it's up to the Pirates. Are you going to be willing to pay him? If not, you have to look at the options of Justin Morneau, bringing him back again. I don't have a problem with that. But I'd love to see him take a run at a kid like that. Outside of those two, the only real options out there is a weak first base class this year, maybe a James Loney, something like that. But first base is the real position of concern this offseason.
Yeah, first base definitely is one of the major concerns of this offseason. Like you said, Morneau, he hasn't contributed as much as he did when he was with the Twins earlier this season. I mean, he still did, fairly well for being cast in the position and just being thrown in there. But also, I think shortstop, if you're not going to go Jordy Mercer or Clint Barmas, I think you need to find a more solid shortstop out there. Clint Barmas, who's done amazing on defense, hasn't had the best bat out there. And Jordy Mercer, I like Jordy in there. I think if they're going to stick with anybody from the inside, I think it's going to be Jordy Mercer. But as you said, right field as well, whether they keep Marlon Byrd or Tabata, whatever they decide to do. But like you said, they have people up and coming in the minor leagues that can fill their positions. Granted, in I'd say a couple months, they can be ready for that.
The thing about the shortstop position is I don't see any way that Clint Barmas is coming back to this team next year. Mm-hmm. He did a more than serviceable job defensively for the Pirates, but his bat lacked, and everybody knows it. Jordy Mercer is a more feasible option in terms of hitting than Clint Barmas was. And I don't necessarily know that you go out and bring anybody and pay somebody a long-term contract to play shortstop right now. When you have a kid that you don't know how he's going to pan out necessarily, but you have Alan Henson down in your minor league system, he's a year or two away still. You won't see him here. You won't see him in 2014. You may see him in 2015. He may be your starting shortstop when it comes to that. But I say for now, you stick with Jordy Mercer and let him get his reps out there at shortstop. He's earned his dues at that position. There's nobody else, and it's another weak class in terms of that. One move that I would like to see the Pirates make, sort of, but again, you might have to give up a lot to get him, and it may be a little bit of a surprise move. The Tampa Bay Rays are shopping a former Cy Young award-winning left-handed pitcher by the name of David Price. It's going to cost a lot to get him. But I don't think it'll cost any of your top prospects. I don't think it'll cost you a Gregory Polanco. I don't think it'll cost you a Jameson Taillon. It may cost you somebody like a Tyler Glasnow, or it may cost you a Luis Heredia. Somebody like that, maybe even a Josh Bell who's way down in the minors still. But to get a guy who has the potential that David Price has and has shown, being that he is a former Cy Young Award winner, he had a down year this year, but I think he's ready for a bounce back next year.
And I think also you have to look at what Jeff Law can do this beginning of the season. He definitely fell off last year. I mean, during the second half of the season, and if he can come out strong and give a good case to why he should still be a starting pitcher with the Pirates, I think he'll be fine. But you have to watch out for him this year to see how he'll handle the pressure.
Well, let's take a look at this real fast. When you look at the starting rotation for next year, you're looking at Probably Garrett Cole being your number one to start the season. Obviously, he was unbelievable here down the stretch. Yeah. Then you're going to have Francisco Liriano as your number two. You're also still going to have Charlie Morton there, and you're going to have a guy coming back in Wandy Rodriguez, who a lot of people have forgotten about since he was out for a long time with an injury. The other thing is, do you bring back A.J. Burnett or not? Do you let him walk? Do you pay him? He's a guy that he had a little bit of an issue here in Game 5 of the NLDS when Clint Hurdle passed him over for the start for Garrett Cole. But he's also a guy who said, I don't want to play for anybody else. I want to stay here. I want to be a Pirate. If I'm not a Pirate, I might retire. So if that's the case, you might want to just pay this guy. Pay this guy, let him play another year, see what he does for you. If he doesn't do much, you have guys waiting in the wings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And this offseason is going to be something unlike any other offseason in Pittsburgh Pirates baseball history. You have to feel that Neil Huntington would be willing to trade a few prospects away if it would better the team for the here and now. But the anticipation is huge. What are you guys looking forward to the most in the upcoming season?
I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward first to another playoff run because this team is primed and ready for another one. I won't say it'll be a disappointment if this team doesn't make the playoffs next year. Baseball is an interesting business where you can be great one year, then you can look at a team like the Washington Nationals this year, who was fantastic in 2012. This year, they were just an average team. Things like that can happen. Outside of that, things I'm looking forward to, two young, unbelievably talented prospects coming up. First off, we already mentioned one, Gregory Polanco. He has the speed to compete with McCutchen and Starling Marte out there. If you have those three in the outfield, nothing's dropping in that outfield. Absolutely. Those gaps will disappear.
Yep.
And another kid, Jamison Tyon, he's ready to go. He racked up, I believe it was over 145 strikeouts this year between Double and Triple-A, averaging about 6 a game. He's ready to go.
I'm excited most for to see how the team as a whole responds to this winning season and playoff run. Like you said, the Washington Nationals, they obviously didn't respond too well from being a pretty bad team years before to being one of the best teams last year. But this upcoming year, they didn't do well. And I just want to see how Pittsburgh will respond to that. Like their last losing season before this year, how they responded so well and pushed out a playoff run, which most people did not expect that at all. They expect them to be a little above 500, but they ended up being one of the best teams in baseball. So I'm pretty excited to see how they will respond.
And when you have guys that have finally solidified themselves as stars in this league, Andrew McCutchen, obviously one of the best players in baseball, but you finally have Neil Walker stepping up, becoming a big-time player for this team, and then you have guys like Pedro Alvarez who are hitting 30 home runs on a consistent basis. He's still a guy that's taken some criticism. I look forward to seeing him next year take the big step forward, not in the home run department. He hit about 230-something this year. I look for him to take a big step forward, get that average up into the 260s to 270s, something like that.
Yeah, the second spot in the lineup, you'd always love for him to get on base, especially a little more consistently than he did in that St. Louis series, Marte and Walker combining for 1 hit overall. And one of the main things that I'm excited about is the fact that we're going to have another Garrett Cole kind of scenario with Jamison Tyon this year. It's going to be absolutely electric. But there's still other baseball games going on. The Pirates are out of things, unfortunately. But let's look at the Los Angeles Dodgers. They dropped the first 2 games at home to the St. Louis Cardinals. Are they going to be able to bounce back in this series and claim it?
Well, let's say this. The problem that the Los Angeles Dodgers are going to have now is the fact that they lost their first 2 games with their 2 best pitchers on the mound. You lost game 1 with Zach Greinke. He lost to Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly, a very good pitcher in his own right. You lost game 2 with your ace and the Cy Young Award winner to be this year in Clayton Kershaw, probably the best pitcher in baseball. Now, Clayton Kershaw didn't have the run support this game. They lost 1-0. But that's where the Dodgers are going to see a problem, is the fact that they let their 2 big guys go out. They had Hyun-Jin Ryu going in Game 3. They did get the win there. But they're going to run into an issue here, as the Cardinals still have Lance Lynn in their back pocket. They had Ricky Nolasco for the Dodgers. I don't know if he's he's serviceable, I'll say that. I don't know if he is a great option for the Dodgers. And they're probably going to end up with Greinke in Game 5 again, and they're probably going to end up with Kershaw in Game 6. My question is, if they get to a Game 7, where are they at? Because guess who's waiting for the St. Louis Cardinals? Mr. Adam Wainwright. Yeah. I like the Cardinals' chances with the pitching.
Yeah, I honestly do like the Cardinals in this series. They're up 2-1 in the series right now, and I don't see they took 2 games in Los Angeles. I mean, now granted, they did take a game in St. Louis so far, and we'll find out what happens next, but I do like St. Louis's chances in this. We saw in the Pirates how dominant they can be, how they can just rack up runs pretty easily, with consecutive hits. So it's going to be an interesting series, but I think the St. Louis Cardinals will come out on top on this.
And the question for the Dodgers is going to be, how do you shut down one bat in particular? How do you shut down Mr. October, Carlos Beltran? He's never won a World Series. He's hungry. He has one of the best batting averages in October in MLB history. What do you do to stop his bat? He's a guy that you can't match up with because he's a switch hitter, hits from both sides of the plate. What do you do to stop him? There's not really an answer.
Yeah, and during the Pirates series, I was saying, don't pitch to the guy.
You almost have to walk him.
You remember what he did in the 8th inning of Game 3. He's one of the best players in October. He is the best player in October.
He's already done it. He's already done it this series too. He had a walk-off hit. I believe it was Game 2 for the Cardinals in extra, or Game 1 or Game 2 in extra innings. He's the best hitter in postseason history.
He's absolutely fantastic. Let's shift over to the American League side of things, where the Red Sox and the Tigers have split a pair of games. One of the games, David Ortiz sending Boston into orbit with a grand slam home run. You see the cop he was celebrating, not helping Torrey Hunter as he dove over the wall. Just a crazy series. Who do you give the upper hand to as it heads back to Comerica Park in Detroit?
Man, at this point, you got to love the Beards. I mean, Boston their bats have been on fire. They lost the first game 1-0 off the back of a fantastic team pitching performance, not an individual performance. It took till the 9th inning for the Boston Red Sox to get their first hit. It took till, I believe, the 7th inning for them to get their first hit in Game 2. Once they did, they unloaded. And, of course, David Ortiz with that grand slam. He's another one of the best hitters in postseason baseball history for that Boston Red Sox team, hitting in the number 4 spot. You want to say that pitching always wins out. In this situation, I don't think it does. This is the one scenario where I think Boston's bats trump Detroit's pitching, because you have guys like Scherzer and Verlander who are probably going to go games 6 and 7 if it gets there for the Tigers. The Red Sox could run into some problems there. The problem is, I don't think it gets that far. I think Boston's bats take care of business.
See, this is where I disagree. I think Detroit is the team out there right now. They have the best hitter in Miguel Cabrera. I don't think there's much argument there with that. And they have 2 of the best pitchers. They have a good rotation. They have Anibal Sanchez, right? Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. You know, they're a solid team when it comes to pitching. But I think going back to Detroit, I think they definitely have the upper hand here going against Boston. But with Miguel Cabrera finally catching fire, been hitting a little more than he's been producing. And Torrey Hunter, I think Detroit, you have to give it to them. They're definitely the most talented team, I think, out there right now.
Here's the only problem with that right now. Miguel Cabrera is hitting off of one leg.
Yeah.
He can't put all of his weight behind his swing. He got barely enough to hit that home run in Game 5 of the ALDS against the Oakland Athletics. I don't know that he's the best hitter in baseball right now when he can only hit off of one leg. Yeah, he might be the best hitter when it comes to putting contact to the bat, but when you have a guy in David Ortiz who has unbelievable amounts of power, so does Miguel Cabrera. But who's going to win that battle when they're completely healthy? When one's completely healthy and the other's not.
Well, both completely healthy.
Yeah,
Miguel Cabrera.
He's not. That's the point. He's not healthy.
Still a home run, though.
He's still a home run. He's still a home run hitter. He's still one of the greatest hitters in baseball history.
Absolutely.
But you also got to remember, Boston has more than serviceable pitchers in their own right.
Yes,
John Lester, fantastic. You have Clay Buchholz, who's more than serviceable. Then you have John Lackey, who's good in his own right. Then you have Jake Peavy, who they brought over from Chicago during the trade deadline.
Well, and they also have Detroit also has a big guy in Prince Fielder who can also smack the ball around. So I think they're more than suitable with that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever called Prince Fielder little. You see how I put quotes around that, because that's not true.
He is a vegetarian.
All right. These guys telling us how they really feel. It's Dan Wallace and Sam Owak. That's going to do it for our MLB segment. Coming up, we debut, I should say, a new segment here on The Big Hit. It's the Rivalry Rampage, where we answer the question, who's better, the Pens or Flyers? That's coming up next on The Big Hit.
It's gonna get louder.
Today I'm going to talk about Patty. Patty's best characteristics, she's stupid. Stupid and ugly. Everything she does is ugly. Watch her eat. Watch her stuff her face. Look at her. Greasy hair, dirty fingernails. It makes me want to vomit. Get a life, Patty. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to The Big Hit. I am Sean P. McCarthy here with Mark McKenna in the Flyers shirt and Melissa Essing in the Pittsburgh Penguins shirt. And this is Rivalry Rampage.
Now, guys, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to start with you, Mark.
Sure.
Who has a better hockey team, Flyers, Penguins?
Well, strictly speaking, this year the Penguins do currently hold a better record, but I will venture as far to say that the Flyers have the better team. If you look at the all-time series, Philadelphia is leading against the Pittsburgh Penguins, 143 wins, 92 losses, and 30 ties. And that's since 1967 when the rivalry began. Recently, the Flyers beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in a Stanley Cup playoffs match, which I think head-to-head puts them in a higher rating than the Penguins.
Okay, while we're talking about the past, when is the last time you guys won the Stanley Cup?
In 1975.
Okay. Our last time was 2009.
Sure.
While we're still going about the past, yes, it's true that when the Flyers play the Penguins, they do bring so much passion to the table. But I'm not seeing any passion in any of your games so far. It shows in your record right now. What is that?
Well, currently this year, the Flyers are going through a rebuilding period. They just fired their head coach and hired a new coach, which hopefully will bring a new spark to the team, that old Broad Street Bully way that we like to play. We're a physical style of hockey, and I think when compared up against the Penguins head-to-head, that when that comes out, the Penguins have a hard time matching it. We tend to bring you guys out of your game. I think the best case for that would be the playoff matchup that happened 2 years ago where we beat you guys. We took you out of the game mentally, leading to a series victory.
Okay, you guys do play very well against us. As we are rivals, it should be that way. Currently, the Penguins are first in the division. We are second in the conference. How do you feel being last right now in the division?
I feel like we have a lot of work to do.
You still feel like you're the better team?
Yeah, absolutely.
Last feels good.
If you look over the years, all right. Let's go back to a time.
Let's go back to the history.
All right, 2006.
Okay.
Now you guys did just draft. Let's see, Fleury, Malkin, and Crosby. Because you guys were the worst team 3 years in a row, you had the first overall draft pick in 2004. You had the second overall draft pick in 2005.
All right.
And then 2006, you got Crosby first, I think. Yeah.
So you're jealous that we have
I'm not jealous. I'm just saying you guys are extremely blessed with this talent.
Yes, we
and
are
this
blessed.
Is
We're
after
very blessed
the fact when in 2006 there were talks of you guys being sold to Kansas City because your fan attendance was lowest in the league for 3 years straight.
They were going bankrupt. How do you respond to their team almost being bankrupt twice?
I mean, yeah, that's very unfortunate, but the past is the past. Right now, we have such a huge fan base. First of all, we have the big three, Malkin, Letang, Crosby. If I had $1 for every time someone came by me and said Crosby sucks because I'm wearing this jersey, I would be rich. I would not even need to go to college anymore. It's ridiculous that you have a fan base that constantly hates on Crosby. He is arguably one of the best right now.
Speaking of Crosby, we'll go on. Who's better, Giroux? Crosby.
Crosby. Don't even
Crosby.
ask him. Don't.
Do you believe Giroux is better than Crosby?
I think Giroux has a lot of potential. I will say Crosby is a better player currently.
Who's a better teammate?
No, hold on.
All right.
Ooh.
They're both top of the line captains in a league where captains are starting to fall short. And I lost my train of thought.
Do you think Giroux is a good captain?
Absolutely.
You think he should be captain of that team?
Yes, absolutely. Now, Crosby, where he lacks is his injury prone. He's injury prone. How do we know how much longer he's going to last on your team?
How do you feel about Crosby's injury proneness in the league?
I feel like, Crosby is injury prone, but that's just, everyone constantly beats on Crosby, I feel like, because of how good he is. He's just, I don't think it's...
Now,
I don't think that's necessarily anything against him. Anyone could, if anyone was coming at a player that hard as they do Crosby, they would be pretty injury prone, I'd say. It's not like Crosby just has weak bones or something.
That's fine. I'd hate to interject, but Crosby is not the entire Pittsburgh Penguins team.
I know he's not.
I'd like to go back into time. Over the Flyers and Penguins history, the Flyers have 2 Stanley Cup victories, 1 less than the Penguins.
Yes, that's correct.
8 conference championships and 16 division championships, whereas the Penguins have 3 Stanley Cup victories, 4 conference championships, and 7 division championships.
It's all about the Stanley Cup. That's the overall.
Overall, the Flyers have better success in the playoffs and better success as a team. We are there every year, competitively. We are
Where
always
were you in the
pushing.
playoffs last year?
We were.
That is true. You did not make the playoffs.
We were pushing the envelope all year. Obviously, we fired a head coach. We have some new things to develop.
You're rebuilding this year.
Absolutely.
So,
but if you look at overall success as a team, I think the Flyers have it.
So overall success as a team. So we'll include the head coaching and the GM, the general management, the front office. Who has better coaching and a better GM, the Penguins or the Flyers?
Currently, the Penguins do. We just hired a new coach. We lost Laviolette.
Do you think Peter Laviolette should have stayed in Philadelphia?
I know there's a lot of questions. You have to fire your head coach first. General managers and higher up people, they don't get fired when the going gets rough right away.
The Penguins fired their coach Michael Therrien back in 2009 in the middle of the season and brought in Dan Bylsma.
Mm-hmm.
They made a coaching change in the middle of the season, and they won the Stanley Cup.
Maybe the Flyers could have similar success.
Possibly. Any other key notes by any of you? What's your final thought? Give me a final thought. We'll give you the last word. So Melissa, if you want to give you your final thought.
Okay, I just think that overall right now, there's nothing more to say about the Penguins. The fact that they are leading the division right now. You guys are in last place. There are many games to be played still, but it's going to take a while for you guys to get back up to where the Penguins are right now.
I can definitely see that. For my final words, I would like to take this argument to the future. I think the Flyers have one of the best young, developing, talented teams in the league. If you look at our stars, Giroux, Couturier, Braden Shen, Wayne Simmons, Jacob Voracek, Gustafsson, Luke Shen, Steve Mason, all below the age of 25 and younger. And that is the core of our team. That's a lot of years ahead of us. You guys, you seem to be injury prone, older, and I feel you're exhausting your young talent and losing that future stake, and you're kind of like wasting your resources to win now. And I haven't seen you guys win a Stanley Cup in the past 2 years.
So we got a team living in the now for the Penguins and a team living in the future for the Flyers. Stay tuned for more on the big hits coming up. See you later.
We're Steelers fans.
I'm a Steelers fan.
And we're Steelers fans. We're good sports. I'm a good sport.
I'm a good sport.
We always have
a designated
driver.
Steelers fans.
Steelers fans don't let fans drive drunk. Responsibility has its rewards. Responsibility has its rewards.
Go!
Go! Go Steelers! Go Steelers! Go Steelers!
Go Steelers!
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back into the Big Hit. I am your host, Josh Hill. We're going to talk some IUP Crimson Hawks football. Joining us for that, some big-time players here on the set. My main man, Anthony Sheeran, my quarterback, Dimitri George. Gentlemen, let's start with the IUP Crimson Hawks. Defeat at the hands of Slippery Rock. It was a tough game. 42-16 was the final. The defense gave up over 600 yards of total offense. Is Slippery Rock that much better than IUP, or was this game just an aberration for the Crimson Hawks?
I think it was an aberration. I mean, you have to look at it as, I talked to a couple players and the coaches. It was Slippery Rock playing their A game. Like, if you talk to even some of the Slippery Rock players, they say they can never play that game again the way they played on Saturday. And IUP probably played their D game. It was not their day, and they have to get better. I mean, we can talk about what they're going to have to do to get to the national championship game. But this team is better than what they showed on Saturday. I think Slippery Rock just was a better team on that day, on that field. I think if you gave IUP another chance at them down the road, maybe in the playoffs, I think you'll see a different story. But to me, this team is not, what they've done so far is not represented by that score or that game.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but to me that means nothing to me. You're the seventh-ranked team in the nation in IUP, and you're going to Slippery Rock, a PSAC game on the road. I believe Slippery Rock was the homecoming game for IUP last year, right? Am I correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you took care of business last year. And Slippery Rock with Nigel Barksdale, one of the better quarterbacks in Division II, not just in PSAC. You had to know that it wasn't going to be an easy game, especially on the road. such a great offense, 676 yards.
But look at Slippery Rock. They went on the road and lost to Gannon. I mean, you can't.
No, I hear what you're saying.
But so how can you say that? All right, we can't let IUP go with a little slip up, and we're gonna let Slippery Rock with a pass and let them go.
No, I'm not saying Slippery Rock's perfect. What I'm saying is, as IUP, you have to know, as the 7th ranked team in the nation, that everyone's looking at you, especially in the PSAC. Okay, you know they made it a final Elite 8, I would say, I guess, last year. So IUP is known. They're a powerhouse in D2, and no one's overlooking them. They're going to get everyone's best shot. To me, saying that that they gave their D effort, or Slippery Rock can't play, wouldn't be able to play that game again. That may be true, but still, as IUP, you have to come prepared. You have to be prepared for everyone's best shot, because you're IUP, you're 7th ranked, you're probably one of the best in D2, and they just weren't prepared.
Couldn't we also say that they had a little bit of luck? I mean, watching some of that highlights, I mean, the corners played, and it was a perfect. I mean, Barksdale threw the ball, and it went through corner's hands, and it just fell right into the receiver's hands. I mean, some of these reasons that they lost this game. And let's also understand that IUP is not a team that can come back from being down. They're not a good team at doing that. They don't have to see that.
Exactly, and I thought in the game plan there should have been of running the ball, and they didn't have success running the ball. Slippery Rock came out and was able to shut down the run, which then put Mike Box in a situation where he had to throw the ball, 41 times? Yeah. Like you said, that's not how they're going to be successful. They want to run the ball and play defense. Mike Box has shown at times that he can be a little sporadic, and his throws are a little high, he's throwing interceptions. So to me, IUP wasn't able to get the ball on the ground, and that's at that point when they weren't able to get some positive yards and move the chains on the ground. That's when they were in trouble.
And I think what also is the trouble for this team is they're not finding a good number 2 option other than Barnes. I understand that Box and Barnes have a great combination. We've seen that if you watch on IUP-TV or your call with Goose, is that they don't have anybody other than Barnes that Box is comfortable throwing the football to. He needs to get Pat Brewer, Tyler Dumermuth,
Carswell had over 100 yards.
McVay, but he also had a fumble too.
Yes, but I mean, nothing went right for IUP on Saturday. So, and Drew Carswell, I think, made his first start for Brewer on Saturday. Yeah. But I hear what you're saying. Mike Box needs, because defense obviously know that. They know that he's keying on Barnes, and they're gonna double team. They're gonna shade their roller safeties over to his side. So yes, Mike Box and the offense is gonna have to make adjustments and finding other key weapons on offense.
Yeah, a couple of things about this game. You can't bring your D game at this point in the season. You're the 7th ranked team in the country. The IUP dropped to 22 in the nation, and Slippery Rock isn't even ranked, which I just find to be a bit odd. And I know that Anthony and I always touch on a quick start for the IUP Crimson Hawks, and I'm sure that you and Goose do as well, because IUP cannot come back when they're down. But I want to pose this question to you after this loss. You never want to get too high or too low. Is IUP still a national championship contender?
Yes, because I'm not trying to. They went into Cal last year and they lost. And it was earlier in the season, but they lost that game and they were able to rebound with the schedule that they had and were able to come back, make the playoffs, and they were a 5-yard play from getting into the semifinals and potentially hosting that game. I think they are still a national championship team. You look at the rest of their schedule, they host Edinburgh this weekend, they're on the road for 2 more games, Clarion and Mercyhurst, and then they host Gannon, and then whoever they play out of the East the last week. We don't know who that'll be given that the flex schedule. I still think they're a national championship team, but the luxury that they lost this weekend is hosting. If they had went undefeated, won the PSAC, repeated as PSAC champions, they would host, be the number 1 seed in the region, and not had to go on the road. Now you're looking at being the 5th or 6th seed, having to go to Winston-Salem, Shepherd, New Haven, maybe Bloom or Westchester or wherever they have to go, and that's the luxury that they lost. I still think they're a playoff team, but they are going to have to do it on the road, which we have seen has been an issue for this team.
Yeah, I definitely think they're a playoff team, but I don't know if they're a national championship team, and I'm only saying this because Slippery Rock is not going to be the only offense that's going to be able to put up points in a hurry, and they're not going to face, teams like Cheney. No disrespect to them, but guys like Cheney and Millersville, they're not going to play teams like that. They're going to play teams with great quarterbacks and great offenses that are going to be able to put points up, and Mike Box and the offense is going to have to score with them because I think the IUP defense is a great defense, but I do think they had a little bit of a wake-up call. Last year we had the whole discussion before they played Chip. How are they going to be able to handle that spread offense? And I thought they did a really good job. But against Slippery Rock, Nigel Barksdale, he had his way even on the ground with running the ball. Also, their running backs for Slippery Rock were able to get some positive yards. So, to me, they're going to face better offenses. And they're going to face good teams. And I don't think that they're able to be, like you said, come from behind. They're a team that wants to run the football. They're a team that wants to control the clock. And if they can't do that, they're in trouble.
You have to look at who they have left. Everybody left on their schedule, other than potentially Ship at the end of the year, is a similar offense to what they run. Likes to run the ball, control it, play good defense. That's it. Pretty much other than that, they are going to be playing teams that are similar to them. I can't see them losing to teams that can play the similar style. And Shippensburg plays a style that plays right into IUP's favor. I understand that Slippery Rock runs a similar offense, but Ship we're going to go 5 wides, and I think, yes, the defense maybe is not as good as it was last year, but it's still really good. And guys like Watkins and Brown and Pecora, are the ones that need to step up. And I think getting Alexander Berdahl back from injury whenever that happens will also make this team better because he's the vocal leader out there. I understand Carl Fleming's the star and gets all the headlines, but Berdahl is the one who calls the signals. And I think in this game, losing him for this game was the one that hurt the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we're not talking about the rest of the season. They're definitely going to make the playoffs. What we're talking about is a national championship. And they're not going to play these teams that they're playing, like Edinburgh and Clarion and Mercyhurst. They're going to play these Winston-Salem State teams, and they're going to run into these teams.
But Winston-Salem State is a team that doesn't rely on their quarterback. They like to run the ball.
I'm just saying Winston-Salem. I'm just saying, there's teams that are going to have quarterbacks, as good, if not better than Nigel Barksdale. They're going to have offenses as good as that. So what I'm saying is they have to get better in being able to, I'm not saying they have to change their offense and be able to come from behind all of a sudden because that's not what they want to do. Their bread and butter is running the football with their trifecta of backs with Finkley, Green, and D'Antoine. But if they're unable to get out to an early lead and control that clock, play their style of football, they're going to be in trouble.
I agree. I mean, they're going to make it. I think they'll win out, and I think I agree with that. But I think if they play Bloom, that will be the real test because Bloom likes to run the ball. But if they play Shippensburg, who likes to throw the ball, and if they can play that style they played last year, they'll win because I feel like they'll do a good job.
Do you trust Mike Box if they're behind?
No, I don't.
And that's the problem. That's the problem right there.
No, I don't trust Mike Box.
All right, guys, and here's the thing. I'm on record of saying this. I believe this team has the coaching staff. They have the players. They are going to be able to get back and right the ship and keep pushing forward. The pressure was mounting every week they were undefeated. They have that monkey off their back. They can just focus on getting back to basics and pushing for the national championship. But let's look forward to this week as the IUP Crimson Hawks will host the Edinburgh Fighting Scots at Frank Signetti Field at George P. Miller Stadium. Preview that game for me real quick, guys.
I mean, IUP coming off the loss, they have to be able to, run the ball. And it's going to be on that offensive line, D'Antoine Williams, to carry that load. Mike Box has made progression since his horrible play in Seton Hill. If they can do that, I think that they can win this game. But Edinburgh's going to put 8 in the box to stop the run. And if they can get over that like they did last year in Edinburgh, I think they'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I see IUP being able to, control the tempo in this game, play their style of football. There is one thing that I did see stats-wise. I might butcher it a little bit, but I think Edinburgh is outscoring their opponents 50-37 in the first quarter. So if Edinburgh starts to gets out to an early lead, IUP could find themselves in trouble. But I think IUP's defense is more than capable in stopping the Edinburgh offense. They don't have Nigel Barksdale on their side, so I feel I'm comfortable saying that IUP should be able to control this game and control this, the tempo and play their style, and they should be able to come out with a victory.
Yeah, Dimitri, that's a great stat. A quick start's going to be huge, especially coming off that loss to Slippery Rock. A few notes: Crimson Hawk Sports Network, Anthony Shear and myself, and on 90.1 WIUP FM. Dimitri George and Mike Gosnell. Also, vote for Coach Signetti as the Liberty Mutual Insurance D2 Coach of the Year. Go to IUP Athletics for all that information. Coming up next, we will send it to the 2-minute drill. That's coming up next right here on The Big Hit.
How are we going to watch this when you are just in La La Land? This is embarrassing.
Is that bad?
Look at you.
I thought this was a pretty good segment.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you even know what they're saying?
No.
You're putting your foot up on set. You just think this is a couch? This is embarrassing. I mean, even here, you're starting to interrogate somebody. Look at you. Turn your back to the camera. That's embarrassing. Where's your suit and tie? You have a Pirates shirt on.
They made the playoffs.
I don't care. You can't be biased. This is ridiculous. Ay, Dios mío.
Hello, world, and welcome back to The Big Hit. This is a 2-minute drill, and I am Sean P. McCarthy. Drew Brees and Tom Brady matched up on Sunday. Brees was 3-0 heading into the game against Tom Brady and the Patriots. And it seemed like they pulled off another win until Tom Brady led his team to yet another game-winning drive, trailing 23-27. Brady marched 70 yards down the field and capped it off with a touchdown pass to Ken Tompkins in the back of the end zone with 5 ticks left on the clock. The best part was the look on Rob Ryan's face when the game winner was scored. You can see all the disgust and disbelief and heartbreak written all over his face. Hey Rob, maybe you shouldn't be parading around the sideline like your team just won the Super Bowl when there's still 2 minutes left in the game. Now, good old Rob didn't know that the Patriots would still get 2 more possessions after his defense stopped the Patriots on 4th down. But a good rule to follow in football, or in any sport for that matter, is to not celebrate until the clock hits 00. But you can't blame it all on good old Rob Ryan. It's in his blood. His brother Rex, head coach of the New York Jets, is the same way. They both like to walk around with a smug look on their face and act like they own the league, when really, none of them have won anything. A word of advice to you, Rob, next time, don't be churlish. The ALCS between the Detroit Tigers and Boston Red Sox is tied out 1 game apiece, thanks to Jared Saltatamacchio's walk-off single to drive in Johnny Gomes. But even more thanks to Big Papi David Ortiz, who entered the batter's box in the bottom of the 8th inning with bases loaded and 2 outs facing Joaquin Benoit in a 5-1 deficit. Ortiz sent the first pitch and Torrey Hunter over the right field wall for a grand slam, tying the game. It gave Ortiz his 51st, 52nd, 53rd, and 54th career postseason RBI, passing Albert Pujols for 5th all-time. It also was his 15th career postseason home run, tying him 9th all-time with the great Bambino, Babe Ruth. Number 1 on that list in postseason home runs is a guy who used to bat behind Big Papi, Manny Ramirez. He has 29 home runs in his career in the postseason. Los Angeles Dodgers are back in the playoffs and are hoping to make it back to the World Series. Last time the Dodgers made it to the World Series was in 1988, and of course that was on this day, on October 15th, 1988. It's when Kirk Gibson hit his world-famous pinch hit walk-off 2-run home run against the Oakland Athletics. Gibson was essentially playing on one leg, and he hit it off one of not only the best relievers the game has ever seen, but an all-around great pitcher, Dennis Eckersley. Also on this day, 1989, Wayne Gretzky became the all-time leader in points when he scored a game-tying goal within the final minute of the game. He passed Gordie Howe's 1,850 point mark set 29 years before. Gretzky did it against his former team, the Edmonton Oilers. That's all the time we have for the Big Hit today. For Director Danielle Eberly, producers Dimitri George and Dan Wallace, I'm Sean P. McCarthy. Don't be churlish.